Now that we know that the return has two components, the dividend component, dividend yield, and the price change or the capital gain component. Now let's go back to what we had earlier in this chapter, the so-called dividend growth model. So the dividend growth model was that pattern of dividends that implies a growth in the company. So the dividends were increasing by a constant rate every year in perpetuity. So now we are going back to that topic because you can probably think of that being the most common dividend pattern in real life. A company that's successful is growing and it can afford to increase its dividend together with its growth. So going back to the formula we had earlier, where we were using that dividend growth model, pattern of dividends, to find how much a share of stock should cost today, right? So the formula was what? Price 0 equals dividend 1 in 1 year divided by R minus G. What we want to do now with this formula is feed it into the topic we are on right now, the required return components. So we want to rearrange it to solve for R, the required return. So first, R minus G, the denominator, is mathematically equal to D1 divided by price 0. So we do that, and then we want to get rid of minus G, and we do that by moving G, the growth rate, to the right hand side. And now we have only R remaining on the left hand side, and that equals D1 over P0, and then we add G to that fraction. So this is how we rearranged the formula we had earlier. The earlier formula was to find the stock price. Now we rearranged it to solve for the discount rate, right? The rate of return, the R. So this is what we got. There was another version of that price formula on the earlier slides where you could instead be given today's dividend, D0, rather than the dividend in 1 year. We can also fit that in here, where instead of D1, you can also use the current dividend, D0, multiplied by 1 plus G. So it's one and the same thing. So let's look closely at this rearranged formula. R equals D1 divided by P0 plus G. So what is D1 divided by P0? So what is the meaning of this first term? Next year's dividend divided by the price per share today. Well, this is exactly what we called dividend yield on one of our recent slides. So if you pay some price to buy a share of stock today, and the company pays you some dividend within a year, then that dividend amount divided by the price you paid gives you the percentage return on your money, just based solely on the dividend paid to you. So this is the dividend yield. Now, what about the second component of the return? Well, we've just learned that the second component is called the capital gains yield, right? Remember, the total return on your money when you buy shares of stock equals dividend yield plus capital gains yield. So this must be the names for these two components. The first one was obvious, dividend yield. The second one is kind of maybe surprising, because what did we originally mean by lowercase g? That was the rate at which the dividends grow every year, right? But now we are seeing that that's not just the rate of growth in dividends every year. It's also the capital gains yield. Capital gains yield is the increase in stock price, right? So it's the rate at which the stock price grows every year. And so kind of there are two meanings to G. That's what I'm saying. G means the rate at which dividend amounts grow every year, and G also means the rate at which the stock price grows. And on one of the earlier slides, we actually had this, sort of mathematical proof when we were covering the dividend growth model, which is where this formula came from, right? A mathematical proof of how when the dividends grow, let's say by 2% per year, then so will the stock price. It will also grow by 2% per year. So both dividends and stock price grow at the same rate each year.